This video will walk through the deployment of the Innoprod Fleet Safety Screen Blocker, which is a solution designed to blank out the screen of a device that's mounted inside a company vehicle. There are really two main use cases for this solution: indoors on forklifts and tuggers, and outdoors in trucks and other vehicles. Because indoor solutions do not have access to GPS speed, we need to use a combination of sensor data to accommodate these vehicles. Configuring these is very unique to the vehicle and the environment. We strongly recommend watching the sensor data logger analysis video first. The link is below in this video on YouTube, also on the website. What we're going to do now is walk through deployment of the app. Today I'll be walking through this demo with Knox Manage from Samsung. However, the process should be fairly similar across most of the MDM providers out there. If you run into any trouble, don't hesitate to reach out. We probably have the details on how to solve any problems you're running into. The first thing to do is to make sure that the application is approved in your managed Google Play account. At play.google.com/work, you can search for the Fleet Safety Screen Lock from Innoprod and make sure you approve that application. Once that application is approved, it will appear in your console. There may be some syncing you have to do in order to do that. Now that I've got that application approved, in my applications in my MDM, the application will automatically show up there. Now I need to get that application deployed out to the devices. With Knox Manage, I go over to my group that I want to deploy it to, and I assign an application out. This is a little bit different MDM by MDM, but essentially when you're assigning an application, you're going to have the option to go ahead and do some configuration inside that option. We're going to deploy this as Android Enterprise so that it's pushed out from the Google Play Store. We do want it to automatically deploy, and we do want it to automatically run. By automatically deploying, the application is forced onto the device, and when it runs, it will automatically launch the app with our configurations. The configuration is really the key for any kind of deployment in a managed configuration environment. We're able to really configure what the application is doing in each vehicle that we deploy it in. We're going to give it a name. I'll just call it Demo Deployment for now. We do need a license key in order to use these managed features. You don't need a license key if you're manually setting it up on each device, but in order to push it out from MDM, we do require a license key. I'm just going to drop a key in here for now. If you need to get keys, head over to innoprodinc.com and contact us, and we'll provide pricing and licenses. The solution, as I mentioned, does work with sensor-based data or GPS data. With sensor, we're using the accelerometer and the gyroscope in the device to determine if the device is moving. And as I mentioned before, this kind of analysis will really depend on the vehicle that the device is mounted in, how it's mounted, and what kind of environment it's driving in. Is it a bumpy road? Is it smooth concrete? So you really need to do some analysis before you start using the sensor-based solutions. GPS is very straightforward. We're just going to use the speed. If it goes over 7 miles an hour, we're going to blank out the screen. If we use sensor-based data, there's a bunch of settings that we have to configure in here. And I go through those in detail in the analysis video, so you'll learn more about what these are. So we'll configure these, and I'll just change them so you can see that all of these values do get changed when we push this out to the tablet. These are the upper and lower thresholds. The other thing that we can configure, regardless whether it is GPS based or sensor based, is the delay in time that it takes the screen to blank when it first reaches that point. So when you're driving along and you reach 7 miles an hour, there's a 2-second delay here, 2,000 milliseconds. When you drop below 7 miles an hour, there's a 2-second delay. This doesn't really impact drivers with GPS, but this can be a setting that you really want to tweak and optimize for that sensor-based deployment. We're going to leave these as is. We talk about those in the other video as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then I'm going to hit assign and OK. So now I've assigned this application to be pushed out to those devices. What I want to do is come over and each application that you're deploying will require some special profile settings, permissions, configurations. And in the case of this application, since we're monitoring speed and sensor data, there are some policies that we need to make sure, and some permissions we need to make sure we're granting. So inside Knox Manage, and this again is very similar across MDMs, I'm going to go into my Android Enterprise policies. And under Application, I want to add an application for app permissions. So if I set my app permissions for my screen blocker, you'll see all the permissions listed in here that the application requires. And we need to go ahead and grant all of these permissions. Precise GPS location permissions are required, along with being able to access storage on the device to save log files. So all of these things are important in order for the device to be able to monitor not just GPS location, but also all of that sensor data. In order to get that sensor data, these are the permissions we need. So we're going to apply those permissions and we're going to hit save. The other thing we want to make sure we do in Android Enterprise is that we come over to location settings and we allow the device to report location, and that we also use high accuracy mode. We want to make sure those are set so that the application and the device are all ready to start using location. A lot of times when you deploy an Android Enterprise device, it will disable settings like location by default, and we have to go back and enforce them to turn back on. We can do that through the console here with MDM, or we can do it manually on the device under settings. I find that it's easier on here. So now that I've got those saved, I'm going to apply it, make sure that that gets pushed out. If I go over to my device, I'm going to give it a quick device command to apply all the latest profiles, and it's been updated. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over and pull the device in here. Let me minimize that and pull the device in. And we can see here the device on the screen. The application has been installed. If I launch the application, it will come up, and all of my permissions should already be applied. And I can see here that it's a managed device, and I can't configure any of these settings because they're all blocked by MDM. So I've pushed those out, my license keys in here, all the numbers that I punched in have come down from MDM, and the device is ready to go. So any kind of movement to the device, if I pick it up and start shaking it a little bit, you'll see that the device senses motion. So that's what would happen on a forklift or a tugger or some sort of piece of equipment like that that's using sensor data. So that's the deployment of the Innoprod Fleet Safety Screen Blocker solution. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help.